into.
Okay, be right back.
I got better. Oh. Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Haley, I still have your check from last semester. We'll use the charter nuclides for this book too. So if you want, I can just hold on to this and you can just sign the new sheet that's going around. The same one.
I
Okay.
was gonna ask you, what do you want me to do with that?
Hey, Miss
I
McKinsey.
don't think so. But you need it again for this class, so. Hey, everybody online.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Sam.
So I'm gonna miss a part of class on Wednesday because that's when I have to do my health screening, the COVID test.
Okay.
So,
This,
letting you know.
I will stream this to YouTube so you can get anything you miss.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. You're getting awfully close to a high and tide. I was starting to worry for a second. When I closed, I was like, hey, whoa, what are we doing here?
I am blocked from live streaming.
Yeah, probably here in a couple months. Just tight probably. Yeah. Well, that's originally what it restarted. It's kind of handy to keep it updated.
Well, it won't let me go live, so I will post the recorded video. I'm not sure why it's doing that. Well,
Mackenzie, can you hear me?
yeah, I can.
So are we allowed to go to physical classes right now without doing the screening, or do you have to do that first?
So the requirements on the screening are that you complete 2 of them during the 2 windows. You do not have to wait for results to attend in-person classes. So you guys can come to class today, even if your screening appointment is tomorrow or like mine is later today. And then you have to do another screening the week of the 14th. And as long as you complete both, you can continue coming to classes. Because the
Doesn't
screening is only for people who are asymptomatic anyway. You don't have to do 2 screenings before you can come to class.
what's the point of getting screened then?
It's to catch anybody who may have caught it while they were on break because everybody traveled and a lot of people traveled to a place that has more incidents than Pocatello because Pocatello has relatively low cases still. So for those of you who went home to Boise or even Idaho Falls, they've got more cases. And they're trying to prevent anybody who is an asymptomatic carrier from spreading it, because that was one of the weaknesses that was identified in our COVID precautions from last semester. And at the end of the semester, there were enough cases happening that faculty and staff were a little bit worried about how much we were going to be able to continue doing on in-person classes. And so just to kind of help us ensure that we get through the semester able to do our hands-on in-person lab type stuff, this was kind of the added protocol that they decided on.
All right, got it. Thank you.
All right, then, okay. Let's take a look at the syllabus. Okay, so first of all, for attendance, I have set it up where you guys can mark your own attendance. Just thinking that way, when I don't mark it, but you come in late and you still want the points for being here and not absent, that will prevent a really low attendance grade that isn't accurate. But if you do not bring your laptop or cell phone, I can still mark your attendance. But I just thought we'd try that specifically for if you're late. That way I don't forget and you don't get penalized just because I forgot, because that's not fair. I'm sorry.
You don't have to mark yourself.
So it's up to you. I was planning to have you guys mostly handle marking yourselves present, and just let me know if you don't have a device to do that and I'll mark it. So if you go into the course Moodle, right at the top, it should have a little attendance block. And if you click on that, it shows me so there's these class sessions, right? So today is the 11th, 8 a.m. There'll be a little red arrow here. You'll click and it should allow you to just see you. Whereas I can see everybody. And then you can just mark it. And by default, if you don't put something in, it marks you as absent. So if you don't want to mark it yourself, just tell me and I can do it. It looks like it's working for people. I will. Kyle. Yes, Cattell, yours worked. You're present.
Supposed to mark ourselves here.
Mhm. Yep.
We have to do this every day for every class.
Yes.
Can we just wait till the end of the semester and then put them all?
I don't think it lets you go back. I think I'm the only one who can edit the past. You can also just say, will you mark it to me?
Seems like a lot of labor and responsibility.
So if anyone has trouble with that or wants me to check it today, we can. I noticed last semester that when I sent messages out using the little Moodle message widget here, some people didn't get them. Some people didn't get them until significantly later than everyone else. So I'm gonna try not to use that. I've been using this announcements feature instead. And I had Christy post some and I got all the emails immediately when she did. So I think that that's gonna be a little bit better. So do check periodically the announcements. I moved the COVID policy off the syllabus. It's the exact same as last semester. We have to wear face coverings. I've heard that they are possibly going to disallow the gaiters, and that you have to wear a mask, an actual mask. But other than that, always have to wear one on campus. remain 6 feet apart. We've got our seating, and then we've got face shields with our masks when we do labs where we would be closer, and we got to sanitize equipment. Yeah, Haley.
What days are our
So I sent out an email to kind of explain this.
I know you said Thursday morning.
Yeah, so Thursday in this class, we're pretty much every single week going to be doing either some sort of group activity or some calculations or some sort of challenge activity. And I think it will be much easier for you all if you are here and can participate in person, but you would still be able to participate on Zoom. So like, there's not going to be any detriment to your ability to learn because you're on Zoom. But unless, you have a COVID reason that you can't be in class, I think you'll just get more out of it if you can be in this class on Thursdays. Friday morning, the capstone class will also be more of the application, hands-on group activities and exercises type of structure. The Monday and Wednesday capstone is going to be almost always theory. That will be very easy to be here for Zoom. The 250 class, which I am actually not teaching, Tom Clausen is teaching. He is doing theory one day and lab the next day. And I think the theory day was Monday, but I'm sure he will tell you today what his plan is when you have that class. And then 221 is going to mostly be theory. We'll have a few throughout the semester activities and hands-on things. I've got a lab project I want us to do for a couple weeks, but I will kind of let you guys know because it's not going to be like Monday's theory, Wednesday's hands-on. It's going to be, here's a set of theory. Okay, now this week we're going to do some hands-on. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Joe.
When should we wear our scrubs? Or will we be changing them into them here?
So with the scrubs, you'll have to ask Tom exactly how he wants to do it in the 250 class. I think it's going to be pretty identical to how I'm doing it with the 153 students. We have taken possession of the lockers in the bathroom right behind our rad area down in RFC. And so you will leave your scrubs in those lockers. And when we go to work, just like when you go at the INL and it's time to dress out, you'll go into the lockers, you'll take off all of your personal belongings. That will stay in the lockers and you guys can lock them. You'll put on your scrubs. You'll come do your pre-job briefing, which we'll do at that table in the rad area. Then you'll go do your rad work. And then at the end of class, you change out, just like at the end of a work evolution. I noticed when I was with all the students in Ukraine at Chernobyl, they have a slightly different, but kind of similar concept system to their clean line. And even though it was different and like it took me some time to adjust, I noticed for the other students that it was kind of completely foreign going through that process. So I wanted to kind of give you guys that experience of how we treat a clean line, leave our possessions, and then we slowly go into more and more restricted area. You leave your stuff, you go do the pre-job brief, you get ready to go into the rad area, you have your PPE on, etc. So I think it'll just be good to get you guys in those habits because you'll need them in the workplace. So that's why we've done the scrubs, the modesty clothing. Hang on one sec. Jack, I think, raised his hand next.
Yeah, I had a couple questions.
Okay.
So first, I can only mark myself as late. Can you change me to present?
Yes.
And second, I don't think that the instructor of that radiation safety class has set up a Moodle link yet, so I probably won't be at that class today.
Okay. I can go in and set it up for him because I will see him when he first gets here. Let's see. Jack is present. I'll set one up. HR was really, really slow, and he literally got access to his Moodle account Saturday night. So not his fault that some stuff isn't prepped. Christy tried to take like his lectures and his handouts and put them in Moodle so that he can just like turn it to not hidden when he gets in there. But HR was really difficult over the break with getting him in place. So if you can't make it here for that class today, I'm sure there'll be a lot of forgiveness because he literally just got access. But I will go in and I'll set up a Zoom in the Moodle and we'll see if we can get it working that way.
Thank you.
Could you not mark it on your phone? Okay, let's see. Yeah, you asked me to mark you.
Yeah. Okay, so then it like makes it not.
Yeah, after I have.
Do you want me to mark you, Amber? Because I know this is okay. And online. Okay, perfect. Oh, I should have made Jack online. That's all right. We'll do that. Okay, let's talk about the syllabus and what this course is going to be. This has been my most favorite class to teach. I really enjoy this topic and have a lot of fun teaching this class. So I am excited, and it's going to be even better than the first time I taught it because I had a little time to prepare. Okay, can everybody see the syllabus online?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 8 a.m. I'm sure it will be everyone's favorite time slot. So this semester, excuse me, I noticed that I really struggle to grade things on time if I'm trying to grade when I'm also having office hours. Just, I guess my personality, I have to sit and look at all your guys' stuff across the board and then grade individually and then look again and make sure like, hey, what is everybody missing that I'm not teaching? What is, some weaknesses across and like, look at that information. So I've set out some very specific office hours, but I'll be off campus about 3. So in the late evenings, I can get that uninterrupted grading time. So any of the listed office hours, you guys are welcome to come by any reason. You've got questions in other classes, you've got questions in my classes, you've got job application questions. Feel free to stop by anytime. And I'm going to use that evening time for when I need that uninterrupted grading time. So I think that'll make everyone a little happier. You guys will hopefully get stuff graded a little faster. And that way I'm not trying to do something when you guys are coming by and needing me. So it's listed on all of the syllabuses for all of the classes or syllabi for all the classes. But it's just basically between classes, and then at the end of each day, I have a little block that I'm available. So feel free to use those times. If you are in Idaho Falls, because I know there's some days that you might just have theory classes and you don't come down here, I'm always willing to take a call or get on Google Meets in our email or Zoom. So just, communicate with me and I can set that up remotely as well. Okay, we're going to cover reactor theory from fission and the neutron life cycle to subcritical multiplication, which we actually are going to get to do an operations experiment at the reactor on campus for subcritical multiplication, which I think will be excellent. We didn't get to do that last time I taught this class. We had to simulate it. I think this will be way better. We're going to talk about criticality and reactivity, thermal and safety limits, fission product barriers, defense in depth, and then some of the concepts of operators and these principles and how that works together. There's one required textbook by Colin Tucker. It's that orange How to Drive a Nuclear Reactor book. It's this one. Everybody copy of this? Okay. So this is one of the few books in the nuclear industry actually written by an operator for operators. He's got a really good job of giving a broad overview. He does talk a lot about his experience with British reactors, which is a little bit different, but all the technical information is still consistent for the US reactor types that you guys will be seeing. And he does a really good job of explaining things, I think, in layman terms, so that you can understand what he's saying. And then when we go look at the calculation or the concept in a more technical way, you have that layer of, well, this is the common sense way of saying it. Now let's apply it in our class. So I think it's a great textbook. And so far, unlike the thermal hydraulics book, I have not seen any typos or errors in this book. So, in addition, there is a DOE handbook, Nuclear Physics and Reactor Theory. There's 2 volumes. So if you look here, here's our DOE handbook 1 and 2. And then there's this Reed Robert Byrne, Introduction to Nuclear Reactor Operations. This is the textbook that my instructor and mentor, when I was taking my license exam, had me use to learn to take the reactor theory portion of the license exam. It has a lot of example questions and calculations in it that are very, very much like what you will see on an NRC license exam. So it's very valuable in that it tells you, hey, read this, look at these equations. Now here's what you have to be able to answer about this concept to pass a license exam. So it's a really helpful resource. It is out of print, and I had the print shop take a PDF copy of my copied 3-hole bunch version that my instructor gave me back when I was taking my license exam. It's not the best quality. You may occasionally find pictures are not very readable. I've tried in the important pictures, like if I give you an assignment and it's got a page and you just can't read the figure, I try to put another figure in that assignment that's the same. But if you have some issues with like, I can't see this, it's not you. It is not great quality copy sometimes, but it is a very valuable book and we will do some problems out of it. And since it's out of print, I could have you guys pay the print shop to print it, or I can just give you the electronic copy. We're allowed to copy it and do whatever since nobody's publishing it anymore. So, the quizzes are not just straight from one resource. So the quizzes are going to have a combination of questions from Tucker, DOE handbooks, Reed Robert Burns. We have some calculation assignments and homework that will tell you, hey, look at the questions on this page or this page of this resource. Yeah, Haley.
So this first quiz, it just says that it's out of the first volume of the DOE handbook. I don't have my book yet. But the quiz was on Wednesday at 1, so I just want to make sure that I don't start with my other resources.
No, I tried to make sure on every single quiz it tells you where it's from. And I purposely didn't jump into this one yet since I knew the bookstore has historically been a little bit slow. And they warned us this semester that they're even a little bit slower. There might be some books they really struggle to have. So no, the first quiz is just over Tucker chapter 2. Let me check that because I thought I removed this from the quiz in case people didn't have it. Let me check the question bank and make sure.
You did remove it in the Moodle quiz.
Okay.
And there's a 10-minute time limit on that quiz, is that correct?
Nope. All of the quizzes should have no time limit and
Mine does say 10 minutes.
Yeah. so
okay,
fine.
let's check that. Okay, so Moodle did something that I really am upset with, where by default now there's this delay time thing. And I tried to unselect it every time I created a quiz, but it's the default. So I know I missed some. So you also should not have this phased entry control either. So let's fix these things. But yeah, they should all be no time limit, unlimited, and no phased entry control. So, no, that's just for me. But if you open a quiz and find that any of those things are happening, please send me an email. I tried really hard to make sure that I didn't have them, but obviously reading quiz 1, we're off to a great start. I will check the question bank and see if it has the Tucker questions in it or not and get back to you guys. So we have our list of, or let's see. We cover the textbook. So reasonable accommodations. Those of you guys who need to work with disability services, please do. Even if you're not sure if you do that early in the semester. So then if you have something come up where you do need that, you've got a plan in place and you can get resources quickly. There's an ISU code of ethics policy. You guys should have gotten a copy of that in your handbook. I am going to say one thing because I noticed a couple of instances last semester where there was some confusion. I don't necessarily put the ethics like plagiarism into specific assignments because I assume that you guys have read and understood the ethics policy. So it is a given that anytime you reference other materials in a written assignment, you need to cite that source because it is a technical field. Other people contribute work to that. We give credit for that work. And so if you don't cite sources, even if it is not in a specific rubric for an assignment, that is plagiarism. So just making that clear from the onset, it won't be specifically said, hey, you need to cite this many sources, because maybe you don't have to, but if you do, you have to make sure it's correctly cited. Did you have a question, Kyle?
Yeah. Have you guys talked about the vaccine and is the school going to plan on like making that mandatory eventually, or what is that?
I don't know.
Is that going to be a thing for INL?
I don't know. So the way the CDC is prioritizing things is essentially it's healthcare workers first, which is maybe parts of the university. I know like the nursing program, they have to do clinicals. So like it might be required for those students who are going to do a clinical rotation to get a vaccine. And then they're going to focus on elderly and other high-risk populations. So if you have a condition that makes you more at risk for COVID, like you might be eligible to get a vaccine under that guidance. But I don't think that in general, students, even students who are doing in-person classes, are considered particularly at risk, because just as a population, students are typically younger, and there's very, very low instances of serious side effects with COVID in the younger populations. I don't know if next semester they might be looking at making it mandatory, just like they do the MMR vaccine for like anyone who's going to live in the dorms, it's mandatory. We might see that. They haven't said yes or no. I think right now where there's a limited supply and they're rolling it out in phases to the people they consider most in need of it, probably universities are going to be fairly low on the list of, yeah, let's make sure everybody in that population has gotten the vaccine. And I just don't see the university requiring it as mandatory when there's a limit on it. And so you may want to get it and not be able to, and then they're also going to not let you come back to campus. I don't see that happening, but I have not heard any official statement. I am sure that there are people at the INL, especially those who work in the defense areas, who are extremely essential workers, who will probably get prioritized, even if they are otherwise not in a risk category, just because the Navy is not going to let ATR shut down. The Army is not going to let SMC shut down. Yeah. And it's because of the support we do for the Department of Defense at SMC and ATR and the wireless test bed and UBC. So I'm sure that several of those employees will get high priority to getting the vaccine. I don't know if they'll try and do something like a statistical approach where, hey, if at least half of our people are vaccinated, that means we can at least work at 50% capacity. And that's, how we'll justify giving 25-year-old healthy young people a vaccine before some of the other risk categories. Because I'm sure that government-wise, there's going to be some of that tension of like, yeah, the military is essential, but the military has young, very healthy people. So we're going to give it to this group instead, right? The military is going to say, well, we're absolutely essential. I agree. The consequences for the military personnel catching it are very low. There's going to be people arguing that old people and sick people need it first. So I don't know how they're going to adjudicate all that. But I have not heard anything about it being mandatory for ISU students or staff at this point. Okay, you guys have had me for a couple semesters. Whatever electronic device you're going to use for class is fine. If it's non-class stuff that's up and I get complaints that it's distracting or I happen to notice, you'll just be counted absent because you weren't participating in class. All right, then we have a list of the topics for each week that we're going to go through. So we have 15 weeks to cover material, which is a bit of a short semester, but we're going to cover a lot. Each week you have a quiz, except for midterm week, because you're going to have a midterm. But every single week you have a reading quiz in this class. There'll be some calculation type questions. There'll be a lot of definition type questions. So a lot of the questions in this class, I had written the quizzes last semester, and so then I put some more in this semester. So they might just have a little bit different flavor than what you're used to seeing from Christy.
And then are they all due, like, 2 weeks after?
So the structure should be that basically each week they open on Monday and they're due on Wednesday. Because I want you guys doing the quizzes in this class as we're talking about the topics. So that when we get to Thursday, our application session, you've heard it, you've read it, you've quizzed on it, and now we can do something with it. You are allowed to take them multiple times. And so, if you go in and you're like, hey, I really had a lot of other assignments and I got a really poor grade, could I have a little more time to try again? I'm very willing to do that, but I want everyone to have at least made attempts before that Wednesday that they're due, so that we can get together Thursday, assuming we all have a certain basic level of experience with the topic. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Any questions online? You guys all following?
All good.
Okay. Hey, Caden. Hey, Porter. I didn't see you guys get here. And then we're going to have spring break, the end of April. They're going to have graduation before you guys leave for spring break. And then you will have to complete your online final after graduation and after spring break, or you won't get your diplomas. So just be aware, you're going to feel like you're all done because they're going to do graduation, and then you're going to still have to do finals.
Have they said whether or not we're walking?
I haven't heard if it's going to be virtual or a drive-through like we did last year, or if they have some plan to space out and just, graduate certain departments at a time so that you can have few enough people in the arena. I don't know what the plan is. I'm sure it will be something non-traditional. I have had a few of my friends who are in the medical industry think that with the vaccines, COVID's going to be pretty much under control by April. But I've also heard that we're getting second waves in some other countries where it's mutated. So I don't know what May will look like.
So I had a question about,
One sec. We'll do Jennifer, then Sam.
Oh, you have to apply for it.
Yes. You have to apply for graduation. In Moodle, I have all the little academic deadlines, and it tells you what your last day to apply for graduation is. So do make sure you've met all your requirements. You put that application in. You're ready to go. Okay, Sam, what was your question?
yeah, I have no idea how to get to the graduation or anything like that. Is that something an academic advisor could help me with, or?
Yes, I think it's in Bangle Web. But yes, an academic advisor can help you do that process. Okay, so we're gonna have attendance, Moodle reading quizzes, and assignments on Moodle. We're gonna have our laboratory exercises and calculations, so that little bit more applied, which is gonna be a fourth of the grade. And then the midterm and the final. The midterm will be in class. You can have a one-sided crib sheet with whatever you want on it. The final exam will be online during finals week. It will be timed, so you can take it whatever day, but it will have a certain time limit. Excuse me. And it'll be open book, open notes, open internet. It'll just be questions such that if you have to look everything up, you probably won't finish it. And then standard grades, just so you guys know, as tech's policy is that you guys have to get a C- in this class to graduate. Those of you who want to be control room operators, you really need to get an A or B. This is the material that you're going to need for your license exam. This is the material that you're going to be asked in an interview if you have competency in. So if you're one of the people whose goal is to be a control room operator, this is a class to prioritize. I got some feedback last semester that sometimes my assignments seemed kind of vague. So I have gone through and I've really tried to be a little bit more detailed on what is due and what I'm expecting to see. But please, if you're not sure, ask questions. I'm more than happy to give clarification if I didn't, provide enough in the Moodle assignment. Pretty much all of our homework is due Sunday of that week at midnight. So we'll cover a lot of it in class on Thursday. You might be done in class, but then you have a few days to finish and get it submitted. The exception is there's a couple of in-class exercises that what you do in class is what you submit. I think I gave you until midnight to get it submitted, just in case you have to go to another class after this, which you guys all do. You have to go to 250. So if it says in class, I'm not giving you all week to work on it. Just whatever we did in class, that's what you submit. And then the rest will be due on Sundays. Pretty consistently. Okay. Any questions about class structure, assignments, what we're covering? It's in here? Okay. I know that some of the classes this semester are in the T&T classroom. Capstone. And I think I'm teaching 153 over there too. Apparently that made the schedule a lot easier, that I was willing to not only have this classroom. Okay. This quiz is over most of the topics in the first volume of the Dewey Handbook, which sounds like a lot, but it should be almost entirely review. It's atomic structure, it's some char of the nuclides, this mass defect we're going to learn about this week, as well as some of that radioactivity and radioactive decay. But most of the content of the quiz is review. So it should not Even though it sounds like it's a huge quiz and over a lot of topics, it should not be new information. But we are going to review it just a little bit as a class, just to make sure. Okay. Okay. So atoms have a central nucleus. And what's in the nucleus?
Protons, neutrons.
Yes, and electrons travel around in orbits around the nucleus. Okay. What's the charge of a proton? Charge of a neutron? Charge of electron? Yep. An atom will have the same number of electrons in orbit as it has protons in its nucleus to be a neutral atom. Sometimes atoms have charges. They're usually always trying to be neutral. This is the lowest energy state. So when they have a charge, they're usually going to go and do something like bond or eject a particle to achieve a neutral state. Okay. Every atom except hydrogen contains one or more neutrons. Okay. The number of protons and neutrons in the nucleus is unique, and it determines the element it represents. So we've got our neutrons, protons, and electrons. Does anybody remember what these orbits are called? Shells. Elements are the most basic parts of matter. They're made of atoms, okay? An element is a substance which those atoms all have the same number of protons. So when we're talking about an element of copper, all of the copper atoms are going to have the same number of protons, okay? So a bar of gold contains only atoms of gold, with all of those atoms having the same number of protons. When we have the same element and differing number of neutrons, you guys remember what that's called? Isotope. Okay. So we have periodic table of the elements. Okay. It's going to tell you if you're dealing with a solid, liquid, or gas. And the periodic table can tell you how many protons there are in the nucleus. And I have linked here. Here's a photographic periodic table, so it has a picture of each element. It's kind of interesting. And this is interactive. You can click on the different properties within the table to look up more information. Okay. But then we deal a lot with isotopes in the nuclear industry, right? Number of neutrons vary, as you guys said, and it's isotopes of an element. So when we talk about an isotope, it's always going to be isotopes of that same element. So we talk about uranium-238, uranium-235, and uranium-233. Those are isotopes of uranium. So we're still talking about the same element, but we have that different number of neutrons. Okay? This was a fun example. So your family name is uranium. In your family, everyone has 92 protons. But your brother has 143 neutrons. So his name is uranium-235. Right? So the element is like the family name. You keep that, like our last name, right? We keep that. But you have 146 neutrons. You're a little more neutron rich. Your name is uranium-238. So just a handy little way to think about isotopes, elements, and the names, okay? So your big sister has 142 neutrons. What would her name be? 234. Okay. Stable isotopes do not decay radioactively. The way we get radioactive materials is when we have an isotope that is not stable. The way it tries to get back to stability is to release energy and particles, which we call radioactivity. Based on how unstable it is, that's going to determine how big the amount of energy and material it tries to eject, right? So when we have really, really unstable isotopes that really want to get stable again, they're going to kick off a really big alpha particle. And it's going to be very high energy and it's going to come off really fast. If you have something that's only a little bit unstable, they're going to release something tiny, like a beta particle or a proton, so gamma radiation. And they're going to release it for a really long time, but it's very low energy. Do you have a question, Kyle?
So radioactivity controls the size of the particle.
That is ejected. Pretty much always. You have some interactions where maybe this particular atom is more likely to undergo a different type of radiation just because of the way the atoms are structured. And so even if it's highly energetic, cesium is a good example. Cesium-137 is pretty energetic. It can have some very hot amount of energy coming off of it. It still prefers to beta decay. It doesn't really release alphas. You'll get some, but it's primarily a beta. So there's some isotopes where they just have a preference, but usually shorter lived, higher energy isotopes are going to release larger particles. More stable, lower energy, less radioactive isotopes are going to release the smaller ones. Because it takes a lot of energy to knock an alpha off, right? Because an alpha particle is a hydrogen atom. You're stripping a whole hydrogen off. That's a lot of energy.
So if we need to point that is the large particle,
So, I mean, we've recorded our largest atom. I think the largest subatomic particle that will be ejected is the alpha particle. I'm not a nuclear physicist, so I don't know that for sure.
yeah, I guess
But I know in our realm, the largest particle we deal with is fission fragments, honestly, because you have a whole atom and a whole other atom, plus some radiation particles that come off. Okay. The energy that holds together the nucleus of an atom is the strongest force known in nature. And that's why when we forcibly split it apart in fission, we create such a significant amount of energy. It requires a lot of work to break that apart. The chemical properties of an element are defined by the number of protons. So all of the members of a certain element, all the isotopes of a certain element, they're going to have the same chemical properties. But they're going to have different atomic masses when they're different isotopes. This is going to be really important as we start calculating energy released in fission and binding energy, because the addition or subtraction of one minuscule little neutron can give us 900 electron volts. And we're going to see that, we're going to do the math, and we're going to look at why we use the isotopes we do for fission, because the energy they release. But no, protons, chemical properties. Isotopes, changing atomic masses. We're not going to affect the chemical property, but we are going to change the mass, and that is really, really important. Okay? Different isotopes are chemically equivalent, but behave slightly differently because of the mass difference. And we, in the nuclear industry, exploit this. Okay, you guys all have your chart of nuclides booklet. There's also a link here for an online one. It is not as good. The Bechtel chart of nuclides there is the best resource. I would bring it to class at least for the first several weeks where we're doing these atomic mass calculations that we're going to be doing, because a lot of the values you have to look up are in that book. And you may do the calculations enough that you memorize them. I know I was reviewing and I had it memorized there for a day. So this just doesn't have quite as much on it. So I really encourage you to have your books here and available in class. Okay. So the chart of nuclides gives us our list of known isotopes, right? Of those, only about a small number of the about 3,000 that we know are actually stable. So the stable isotopes are going to be the white ones on our chart, right? Some of which are not naturally occurring, right? Some of those are man-made, and so you won't find them in nature. The vast majority exist for only a short time before undergoing a transformation, right? So they're going to release that radioactivity. Some are so unstable that they can't exist naturally and only can be created in laboratories. The most fissile isotope californium, it would release the most energy in fission. It fissions the most easily of any isotope. It has a half-life of a couple seconds and can only be produced in a laboratory. So we don't use it as fuel because it's not stable enough to actually be formed into pellets. Tritium, which is an isotope of hydrogen, is continuously generated by natural processes. So we might find it in nature, but it has a really short half-life. So if that process ever stopped, we would no longer see that. So it does exist in nature, but just for brief moments. Okay? And then we have half-lives up to billions of years, right? That they're considered effectively stable, even though technically there is a very, very small amount of radioactive decay that's occurring. Any questions on that review? I know that went pretty fast, but I think all of that was stuff you guys are pretty confident in. Okay, there are some review questions on the end of this slide. We're not going to go over them right now in class because I got to get that zoom up for the 250. But this is a good set of self-quizzing questions to ask yourself, just to make sure you have those definitions all straight in your mind, because we'll be referring to and jumping back and forth with this knowledge as we jump into calculations tomorrow. Any questions online?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm excited for this class. We will jump into fission energy calculations tomorrow. And I'm going to put up a Zoom for that 250 and see if we can get that so that you guys who are up in Idaho Falls can be in that first class today. All right. Welcome back, guys.
One question.
Yeah.
So will you post what days that we have to physically be?
I sent an email that had that. Yes.
But those dates will be, or we will physically have.
You don't physically have to be here. You will still be able to access things online. I'm not going to, especially with, the COVID policy, everything has to be accessible if you need to isolate. I'm telling you, if you don't have to isolate, those are the days that you're going to get the most benefit if you're in person. And then Tom might have to do alternative assignments in 250 if you miss the lab day. And I don't know what his policy on that's going to be. For me, with me, yep. All right, guys, I could not stream this on YouTube. I don't know why it didn't let me, but I will post this video on Moodle and then hopefully get everything back to streaming. All right, guys.